Continuing on with this work on power in enterprise architecture, another thing we can look at is the relationship between power and responsibility. Now, if power is about the ability to do work, one of the things we need to look at is what are the forms of work, the dimensions of work. Now, if you remember the earlier video about asset dimensions, we work on assets, so the same dimensions apply. There is physical work, physically changing something. There is virtual work, often mental effort of moving things, moving virtual things around, making changes to virtual entities. There is emotional or relational work, building relationships with other people and maintaining those relationships. And there is aspirational work, or you might call it spiritual work if you like, a sense of meaning, creating a sense of meaning and purpose, a sense of self and of relationship with that which is greater than self. Hence, an organisation which is all about relationship with something greater than self needs to have the work done about building that kind of, the power needed to build that kind of work. Now, machines can only do physical work and virtual work, working on data, for example, create, read, update, delete, all that kind of stuff. They can't do relational work as such, and they certainly don't do purposive work. So if we need those other two forms of work, the relational work and the aspirational work, that can only be done by people. So if we try to build a system that expects everything to be done by machine, it's not going to work. The ability to do the work is not going to be there. But there's also a very tight relationship between power and responsibility. I often frame that specifically as responsibility, the ability to choose appropriate responses. So RACI, for example, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed or engaged. Those are standard models that we use right the way through mainstream business. But think of them always in terms of what is the power, what is the ability to do the work that we're asking for in each of those relationships. Now, the same applies in relationships between services. To some extent, it applies the same between machines as with humans, but what is the ability to do work? What is the tendency to avoid work and think that power is the ability to avoid or offload the work, to dump it on other people? The same is true, for example, for an IT system or a technical system where you have one system that runs open loop and assumes that some of the other systems are going to sort out the resultant mess. This is a classic power problem and is really useful to think of it in terms of power and responsibility. So power is the ability to do the work. We need an emphasis on the ability perhaps, but also an emphasis on the responsibility, the ability to choose appropriate responses to the context.